there's a moment buried inside BTS's official Busan behind-the-scenes footage that most people scrolled right past. It lasts less than a minute. There's no dramatic music, no flashing lights, no choreography. It's just 7 guys sitting around eating food. But if you actually slow down and watch what's being said in that room, you'll realize BTS just revealed something about Jimin that fans have been trying to piece together for years. And once you hear it, you're going to understand exactly why this clip has quietly become one of the most talked about moments from the entire ARIRANG World Tour. If you're new here, welcome. This channel covers BTS, and specifically we go deep on the moments other channels skip past. So if you like this kind of breakdown, stick around till the end, because I'm going to walk you through exactly what happens in this footage, why it matters, and why Busan itself makes this moment hit differently than it would anywhere else on the tour. So here's the setup. BTS just wrapped their comeback after finishing mandatory military service, and they're now in the middle of the biggest world tour of their career, called the ARIRANG World Tour, named after their new album. This tour started in April in Goyang, South Korea, and it's scheduled to run for almost a full year, hitting more than 80 shows across dozens of cities on nearly every continent. But out of every single stop on this massive run, one date stood out before the group even stepped on stage. That date was Busan. Busan is not just another city for BTS. It's Jimin's hometown. It's also Jungkook's hometown. And more importantly, Busan's Asian main stadium is the exact venue where BTS played their final full group concert before all 7 members left for military service back in 2022. Think about that for a second. The last time these 7 men stood together on a stage as a complete group, not knowing exactly when they'd all be back together again, it was in that stadium. So when they returned to that same stage in June, it wasn't just a stop on a tour. It was a full circle moment. It happened to land on the anniversary of the group's official debut. And for Jimin specifically, walking back into that arena wasn't just performing in front of a hometown crowd. It was performing in the place that holds his entire history as an artist, from a trainee with a dream to one of the most recognized performers on the planet. Now, before any of that emotional stadium moment happened, before the lights came up and the crowd started singing along, there was a much quieter scene happening backstage. And that's the part almost nobody is talking about. In the official behind-the-scenes footage released after the Busan shows, there's a clip that opens with the members gathered together, clearly relaxed, clearly off-duty for a few minutes before the chaos of the show. And what they're doing is eating, not catering, not some fancy prepared meal from a venue kitchen. They're eating food that was sent directly from Jimin's family home. Specifically, rice cakes. In Korean, this kind of rice cake is called tteok, and if you're not familiar with Korean food culture, tteok isn't just a snack. It's often tied to celebration, to comfort, to home. It's the kind of food that shows up at gatherings, at holidays, at moments that matter. So the fact that Jimin's family sent tteok to the members backstage, in Busan, on the night of this massive comeback show, already tells you something about what this moment meant to his family too. And the reaction from the other members is where this clip really starts to hit. As they're eating, you can see them clearly enjoying it. Multiple members are reacting to the taste, and the praise isn't subtle. Some of the phrasing used in the room translates roughly to them calling the rice cakes insanely good, almost unbelievably good, the kind of reaction where you can tell it's not just polite compliments for the cameras. It's men in the middle of an exhausting tour schedule, genuinely stopping to appreciate a taste of home cooking. If you've ever had a friend's parent cook for you and immediately understood why your friend turned out the way they did, that's basically the energy of this clip. It's small, it's simple, but it's real. And it's worth pausing on just how normal this moment looks, because that's exactly what makes it stand out. These are 7 of the most famous performers on the planet, about to walk into a stadium packed with tens of thousands of people, and in the minutes before that happens, they're sitting around like any group of childhood friends would, snacking, joking, half paying attention to the food and half paying attention to each other. No stylists fixing hair in the background. No cameras being directed to get a specific angle. Just a room full of guys who spent more than a decade of their lives together, doing the most ordinary thing imaginable right before doing something extraordinary. Now here's where it gets interesting, because the conversation doesn't stay on the food. While they're eating, the members start talking about something else entirely. They start talking about Jimin's father. According to what's shown in the footage, the members bring up how different Jimin's father looks. Not in a vague way. They're specifically commenting on how much slimmer, how much healthier, how much more youthful he appears. And this isn't a passing comment that gets brushed off. The members seem genuinely surprised, the kind of surprised where you haven't seen someone in a while and their transformation actually stops you mid-conversation. So naturally, they ask Jimin about it. And this is a part of the clip that turns a light-hearted snack break into something a lot more meaningful. Jimin explains that his father managed to lose a significant amount of weight, enough that he now looks noticeably younger, reportedly around 15 years younger than his actual age. And when asked how, Jimin doesn't just say his dad started a diet or joined a gym. He reveals that there was a promise, a private promise between him and his father. Something the two of them apparently agreed on quietly, just between them, that ended up motivating this transformation. Now, to be clear, the exact details of what this promise actually was haven't been fully spelled out anywhere official. Jimin references it in the footage, the members react to it. But the full story behind what exactly was promised, why it started, what the specific agreement even was, that part remains something fans are still piecing together from the footage itself. Some fans have speculated it could be tied to health concerns. Some think it could be tied to a specific goal or milestone Jimin wanted his father to reach. And others think it might just be a private family thing that Jimin only shared a small piece of. As of right now, there's no official statement clarifying the full context, so take that part as what it is. A claim made in the moment, not a confirmed detailed story. But here's why the small, almost throwaway moment carries so much more weight than it seems like it should. If you follow Jimin for any length of time, you know he doesn't talk about his family casually. He's someone who tends to keep that part of his life fairly private, especially in group settings where cameras are rolling. So when he opens up, even briefly, even in what looks like an unscripted, relaxed moment backstage, it stands out. This wasn't a planned interview segment. This wasn't a moment where producers set up a conversation about family. This was 7 guys eating snacks before a show, and one of them happened to open up about something personal in front of his bandmates on camera without it feeling forced or staged. Think about how rare that actually is in this industry. Idols spend years being trained to keep certain things off camera, especially anything involving parents, siblings, or home life, partly for privacy, and partly because agencies tend to be cautious about what gets attached to an artist's public image. So when a moment like this slips through, unscripted, in a behind-the-scenes video that wasn't built around this topic at all, it tells you the moment was real enough that nobody thought to cut it. And honestly, that's probably exactly why it's resonating with fans the way it is. It wasn't manufactured to go viral. It just happened, and it stuck. And that's honestly the appeal of behind-the-scenes footage like this in the first place. The scripted stuff, the official interviews, the promotional content, all of that has its place, but it's polished. It's controlled. This clip isn't. This is BTS being 7 guys who've known each other for over a decade, sitting around, eating food a mom sent from home, teasing each other, asking real questions and getting real answers. That's the kind of content that fans have been gravitating toward more and more, especially now that the members are older, the group dynamic has matured, and moments like this feel less like fan service and more like genuine friendship playing out on camera. Now let's zoom out for a second, because context matters here. This clip didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened specifically in Busan, which, like I mentioned earlier, is Jimin's hometown. So when you put these two pieces together, the location and the content of the conversation, it starts to paint a fuller picture. Jimin wasn't just performing in a random city that night. He was performing in the city where his family actually lives, the city where his dad presumably was either in the audience, or at least very much aware that his son was about to walk onto that stage in front of over 50,000 people, at the exact venue tied to one of the most emotional chapters of BTS's career. So when his family sent food backstage, that wasn't just a nice gesture. That was a mom or a family member making sure their son, and by extension his brothers in the group, had a taste of home before one of the biggest nights of the entire tour. And when the topic of his father's transformation came up organically in that moment, it makes sense that it would surface then, in Busan, surrounded by people who've known Jimin long before any of his fame, right before he steps onto a stage built in the city that raised him. There's actually a broader theme running through this Busan stop that ties directly into this. Reports from the concert itself describe Jimin bringing an elementary school teacher up during the show and making a promise to that teacher, saying he'd repay them with an even more perfect performance. So you have this pattern emerging across the Busan stop specifically, this idea of promises, of personal connections, of Jimin tying his performance and his identity directly back to the people who shaped him, whether that's a childhood teacher or his own father. It's not a coincidence that this is the city where these kinds of stories keep surfacing. Busan clearly hits different for him, and honestly it should. This is where it all started. Now, if you're a longtime BTS fan, you might already be thinking about how this connects to previous moments involving Jimin's family. This isn't the first time little glimpses of his home life have made it into official content, but it is one of the more direct instances where a member's actual family, and specifically a parent's personal transformation, becomes a topic of conversation among the whole group on camera. That combination of specificity, the food being from his mom, the topic being his dad, the location being his hometown, is what makes this particular 30-something seconds of footage so much more significant than it looks on the surface. And if you're newer to BTS and you're watching this thinking, why does a clip of guys eating rice cakes matter so much? I get it. But this is honestly a great entry point into understanding why this fandom is so deeply invested in these small moments. It's not really about the rice cake. It's about what the rice cake represents. It's about a mother making sure her son and his closest friends are taken care of on one of the most important nights of his career. It's about a group of men who've spent over a decade together being comfortable enough to ask personal questions and get honest answers in the middle of a hectic tour schedule. And it's about Jimin, specifically, choosing to share even a small piece of something personal about his father in the city where that relationship actually lives. Now let's talk a little bit about the timing of all this, because it matters. This Busan stop happened relatively early in what's shaping up to be one of the biggest world tours any Korean artist has ever done, spanning dozens of cities and well over 80 shows total. Before this, the tour had already made stops in places like Goyang and Tokyo, and it would go on to hit stadiums across Europe and North America throughout the summer, including massive stops in cities like Munich, Paris, London, and multiple cities across the United States. So Busan wasn't the finale. It wasn't even close to the finale. But emotionally, it functioned like one of the tour's biggest checkpoints because of everything tied to that specific venue and that specific city for 2 of the 7 members. And that's part of why this small backstage clip resonates so much within the larger context of the tour. Out of dozens of stops, dozens of cities, dozens of shows, this is the one where a moment like this surfaces. Not in London, not in Los Angeles, not in Paris. In Busan, right before the hometown show, right in that emotionally loaded venue, is where the cameras happened to catch Jimin talking about his dad. By the time BTS reached Busan, this tour had already broken records in almost every city it touched. Tickets across South Korea, North America, and Europe reportedly sold out within hours. The production itself is built around a massive 360-degree stage, meaning there's no real backstage in the traditional sense during the actual performance, no side of the stage to hide on, just member after member fully exposed to the crowd from every angle for the entire show. That kind of setup demands an enormous amount of physical and mental preparation before the members even walk out, which makes a quiet, unscripted snack break beforehand feel even more important. It's one of the last genuinely calm moments they get before hours of non-stop performing in front of tens of thousands of people watching from every direction. So when you picture this clip now, picture it against that backdrop. Outside those walls, there's a production team finishing final checks on a stage built for over 50,000 fans. There's a city that watched Jimin grow from a trainee into one of the most recognizable performers in the world. And inside, just for a few minutes, there's a plate of rice cakes from his mom's kitchen and a conversation about his dad's health that nobody planned to have on camera. If you go back and watch the footage yourself, and I'd honestly recommend you do, because reading about it and watching it hit completely differently, pay attention to the body language of the other members while Jimin is talking. There's a specific kind of attentiveness there. It's not the exaggerated reactions you sometimes see in edited variety content. It's subtle. It's the kind of listening you do when someone you've known for over a decade is telling you something that actually matters to them. That's the part that doesn't always come through in a written breakdown like this one. So if you haven't seen the clip yet, go find it after this video and watch it for yourself. Now, a lot of fans have started connecting this moment to a bigger pattern they've noticed throughout this entire comeback era, which is that BTS, and Jimin specifically, seem noticeably more open about personal, human, unscripted moments than they were earlier in their career. Whether that's a byproduct of maturing, of going through military service and coming back with a different perspective, or simply feeling more secure in who they are after over a decade in the industry, something has clearly shifted. And little clips like this backstage rice cake moment are proof of that shift. It's not a produced narrative. It's not a marketing angle. It's just Jimin being honest in front of people he trusts about something that clearly means a lot to him. So to bring this all together, what actually happened in this clip is simple on the surface. The members ate rice cakes sent from Jimin's family home in Busan. They loved it, they complimented it repeatedly, and somewhere in that conversation, they noticed how different Jimin's father looked. Healthier, slimmer, visibly younger. And when they asked Jimin about it, he revealed that his father had lost enough weight to look around 15 years younger, and that this transformation was tied to a private promise between the two of them, one whose full details still haven't been made public. It's a small window into Jimin's relationship with his father, captured almost by accident, in the one city on this entire world tour where that relationship and Jimin's entire personal history actually lives. And that's really the takeaway here. Behind every stadium show, every viral fan cam, every perfectly choreographed performance, there are these small human moments that rarely make it to the spotlight. This one did, almost by chance, tucked into a few seconds of official behind-the-scenes footage that most people scrolled past looking for the next big viral clip. But if you actually slow down and pay attention to it, it tells you more about who Jimin is as a person than most interviews ever could. If this kind of deep dive into the smaller, human side of BTS is something you're into, this channel covers this stuff regularly, breaking down moments from every stop of this tour, so make sure you're subscribed if you want to catch the next one before it blows up. And if you've already seen the full clip yourself, drop a comment and let me know what you think that private promise between Jimin and his father actually was, because right now, that's still one of the biggest unanswered questions from this entire tour. Was it tied to his health? Was it tied to something bigger happening in the family? Or was it something much simpler that just meant a lot to the two of them personally? I want to hear your theories. It's also worth remembering that this tour is far from over. There are still major stops ahead, and if this early Busan footage is already surfacing moments this personal, there's a good chance the rest of the tour's behind-the-scenes content will keep giving us glimpses like this one. So if a moment like this can hide inside a single minute of footage most people scrolled past, imagine what else is sitting in hours of tour content still waiting to be noticed. That's exactly why breaking these clips down piece by piece matters, because the loudest moments of a tour, the pyrotechnics, the choreography, the massive sing-alongs, aren't always the ones that tell you the most about who these 7 men actually are. Sometimes it's a plate of rice cakes and a question about someone's dad. And before you go, if you found this breakdown genuinely interesting, do me a favor and hit that like button, because it actually helps this channel keep covering these smaller, easy-to-miss moments instead of just the big, obvious viral clips everyone else is already talking about. There's a lot more from this Busan stop and from the rest of this tour that deserves the same kind of attention, and I'll keep bringing it to you as long as you keep showing up for it. And honestly, that contrast is what makes Busan such a fitting place for this story to come out. This is a city that has watched this group at their absolute highest points and their most uncertain ones. It watched them debut into stardom, and it watched them walk off stage in 2022 not knowing exactly when the 7 of them would stand together like that again. So when they came back, and when a moment like this rice cake conversation happened to be caught on camera, it almost feels less like a coincidence and more like the city doing what it's always done for these 7 men, holding space for both the massive, stadium-shaking version of BTS and the quieter, more human version that shows up when the cameras aren't trying to capture anything in particular. That's really the heart of why this clip is worth talking about. Not because it's dramatic, not because it's shocking, but because it's honest, in a way that's becoming increasingly rare the bigger this group gets. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.